This meeting is being conducted in person and electronically. The public may participate in tonight's meeting by using the Zoom link provided on the Planning Commission agenda. Please note that all virtual participants will be on mute until they are called upon by the chair, at which point they will be unmuted. If you're a member of the public and would like to comment on an item, use the raise hand function on Zoom. To avoid confusion, please wait for the item you desire to comment on to be called by the chair before electronically raising your hand. For each matter considered by the commission, there will first be a staff presentation, followed by a presentation from the project applicant. Testimony from supporters of the project will be taken, followed by testimony from those in opposition. The applicant will have the right to a final rebuttal presentation prior to closing the public hearing. In accordance with Section 13 of Article 2 of the Planning Commission rules and regulations governing length of public debate, all public testimony from those in support and in opposition of the project will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The 3 lights on the podium next to the microphone will indicate the amount of time remaining for the speaker. The green light will be turned on when the speaker begins. The yellow light will come on with a soft bell ring when 1 minute is remaining. The speaker should be completing the testimony by the time the red light comes on, with a final bell indicating time has expired. All in-person public testimony must be presented to the commission at the podium. Any testimony in reference to race, religion, ethnicity, economic status, national origin, or any other classification protected under state or federal law in derogatory manner shall be deemed irrelevant and will not be considered by the commission in making its land use determinations. If you challenge these land use matters in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised in oral or written testimony or before the close of the hearing. We will start today's meeting with approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Good afternoon, Chair Hardy and Commissioners. Staff, my name is Rob Holt with Planning and Development Supervising Planner, and staff does not have changes to the agenda. However, there are revisions to 2 exhibits of consent calendar item 5B, ID 23-1140. Let me say that again, ID 23-1140, which in a errata sheet has been provided with details of these changes in front of you. The first, Exhibit H, Conditions of Approval for Tentative Tract Map 6366, has revisions to conditions numbers 20 and 21, which replace verbiage specific to the dedication of public outlots along Bliss Avenue to be changed from public outlots to private outlots. And Exhibit J has revisions to the Public Works memorandums, both dated June 19th, 2023 and June 30th, 2023, relative to the requirement of the design and construction of a major street bridge at the intersection of Fowler and Millditch to be allowed issuance of a building permit contingent on the progress of bridge work rather than the original, which was prior to any issuance of building permits. With that, staff has no other revisions.
Does the public have any changes to the agenda? Do any commissioners have any changes to the agenda? Would anybody like to make, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, first made by Monica and second, or Commissioner Bray and Commissioner Diaz. Would the secretary please take vote? If you are in favor, please say aye, or if you're opposed, say nay. Sorry.
Chair, we can actually do just a voice vote because we don't have anybody on Zoom.
Okay. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. think our consent,
So you'll want to go ahead and announce the consent items.
okay.
And then go out to public to see if there are any comments on the consent items before voting to. Yeah, yes, you can just call out the item number, the ID number, and then just a brief statement of what it is.
Okay, consent calendar, ID 231191 and ID 231140, consideration of vesting tentative track map number 6366. Oh.
And just to be clear, item 231191 is the July 5th, 2023
Minutes, or-
meeting minutes.
Okay, so strike that. Let me start this over. Consent calendar, ID 231140. This is a consideration of vesting tentative track map number 6366. And ID 23144, consideration of vesting tentative track map of number 6341.
And then prior to taking the vote, you can ask if there's
Oh,
any
vote,
public
sorry.
comment on it.
Are there any members of the planning staff who would like to make a comment on the consent calendar items? Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment on the items that remain on the consent calendar? Will you please approach? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Vice Chair Hardy, Commissioners. My name is Drew Phelps, here representing Granville Homes, address 1306 West Herndon here in Fresno. We do have a request that was also filed via email. Just want to formalize it and here and reiterate it verbally to pull item 5B from the consent calendar. We do have a concern about a single condition and would appreciate the opportunity to discuss. Thank you.
Director, I think I did ask if there was any members to change, so what's the correct protocol?
So you have a request that there is an item that an applicant would like pulled from the consent calendar. So when the commission decides on the consent calendar, one of you may choose to pull that and in your motion. I move to approve the consent calendar minus this item to be heard on contested consent. So you would have to, this body would have to say, yes, I do want to hear it on contested consent. You would need to make a motion to pull it off, and then you would approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Director.
A motion to approve minus the, I forgot the number.
Minus item 5B, ID 23110.
Yes.
You would like to hear that on contested consent. Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Is there any motion? Do we go to Zoom? Is there any members on Zoom that would like to comment on the consent calendar?
No hands at this time.
Thank you.
So you've already taken the vote, so
Oh.
you can move on to the next,
Okay,
to
so,
the new matters, but remember, well, contested consent, so you'll have to visit item 5B, and then you'll go to new matters.
so do I call the
So,
5B one?
so call 5B,
Okay,
and then under page 4 of your script, it'll start with what you should be asking. I don't know if staff has any presentation on this, but you'd ask staff to begin their presentation on item 5B.
okay, so so new matters, no, consent still, sorry. Contested consent matters, ID 23144.
1140.
1140. See that? Sorry.
I have one, oh, 1140, that's what's on contested.
That's what I
consent.
said.
Yep. And then go down here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. I will ask city staff to present the item. That makes sense. I didn't go in order.
Okay. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Tonight, staff brings forth consideration applications for a track map, plan development permit application, and related environmental finding. The subject property is located on Bliss Avenue between southeast of Shields and Fowler, and is surrounded by single-family development to the east and south. There are commercial buildings to the west, and further single-family development to the north. The vesting tentative tract map 6366 is comprised of 71 lots on approximately 7.94 acres, resulting in a dwelling unit density of 8.94 dwelling units per acre, which is consistent of the underlying medium density plan land use designation of between 5 and 12 dwelling units per acre. The average lot size is at 2,995 square feet, and there is a plan development which allows for modifications to property development standards specific to 4 lots of the garage front setback, the removal of the garage to facade setback, the reduction in rear yard setback, decrease or reduction in lot depth and width and area, and increase in maximum lot coverage as identified in the staff report. All other development standards will comply with the RS5 zone district. Here, I'd like to provide a track map overlaying the aerial so you can understand how the development would look in today's world. The applicant did provide documentation and request for discussion on CFD number 18, and this is a funding mechanism for public safety services that is specific to police, fire safety, protection, and suppression services. It was created in late 2022 and deals with projects with properties that have been annexed since 2003. With this, before I conclude the presentation, I'd like to bring up Harmon from Public Works to further extrapolate on CFD number 18, as that is a Public Works condition. So I'll let him come up, and then I'll come back for final questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Harmon G. Dollywall, Licensed Engineer and Manager with Public Works. CFD 18 was created as a discussion with the Building Industry Association. Public Works and the building industry met 3 times and held 3 meetings to discover the findings and the recommendations of a study that was prepared by a consultant hired by Public Works. The study was reviewed in depth not only by Public Works, reviewed by police and fire departments. It was also reviewed by finance departments, the city manager's office, the city attorney's office. And it was recommended that in areas that were annexed since 2003 and have a tax sharing agreement with the county, that is 62% of the property tax that goes to the county and 38% to the city of Fresno, that this new CFD 18 tax would apply to all residential projects only, not to commercial projects or industrial, just only for residential, be single-family or multifamily. And this project, this area was annexed in 2007, so this is why this subject property was conditioned with the CFD 18 requirement. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prior to concluding, now that this is on consent calendar, staff has to recommend approval with those conditions from previously stated. For condition, the approval with the revision of conditions number 20 and 21 to replace verbiage specific to dedication of public outlots now being private outlots. And for the memorandums from Public Works dated June 19th, 2023, and June 30th, dated 2023, to change the prior to issuance of building permits for the construction of the bridge to now be contingent on the progress of bridge work. And with that, staff recommends approval with those conditions. revised
Thank you so
conditions.
much.
Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Commission, any questions?
Do these changes have any impact on the length of time it will take to construct or the cost of the build-out? Or is it just really changing for change's sake?
For the public and private outlets, it has no effect. I don't know if Public Works would like to speak on full build-out and if it would delay issuance of building permits.
Good evening, Harmon, again with Public Works. For the bridge condition, we worked well with the developer. We know that the construction is going to take some time, and we're working to get a schedule complete. And to encourage development, we agreed with the developer to allow some, as soon as they've started some construction, to allow building permits to be issued, and construction is commencing. So it's going to depend on the construction completion for the final acceptance of and then allowing occupancy of those said residential units.
Thank you. Any other further questions from the commission? I will now invite, thank you, staff. I will now invite the applicant to present.
Good evening again, Vice Chair Hardy, Commissioners, Drew Phelps, Granville Homes. Would just like to start first and foremost by thanking staff. We did have a few different planners come through on this particular map, and in particular, John George, who is a little new to the city. This is our first time working with him on a map. He saw it through to the finish line, and he was great to work with. We're really appreciative of staff's help on this map. Would just like to say, as I mentioned in my request to pull the item from consent, we do agree with all other conditions on the map. It's the one regarding CFD 18 that we do have a little bit of trouble with. We have been working with Public Works staff for a number of months on this issue ever since we became aware of the fact that it was to be applied to projects that aren't necessarily just in the west area, or projects that weren't part of what we refer to in the industry as the Finucane annexation, which was a one-off agreement for tax sharing. But just to get back specifically a little bit about this project, staff laid it out really well, the location of the project. We're really excited because this is really the last single-family map in what some of you may know as our Belterra neighborhood. We believe we've done a great job of providing a quality mix of different products, a different range of densities of single family. Obviously, this is a little bit higher density single family. It's a new product line that this will be the first of its kind that we've built before. And so we're really excited about that. We also have a multifamily project in the works. The site plan has been approved, and we're in the construction phases now just to the south of this project. There's commercial, as you saw on the aerial view. So it's a very walkable neighborhood. Like I said, really excited about the synergy that all of this is going to create within the area. Obviously, jobs are very close by with the industrial park just to the west, the airport close by. We believe it's going to be a great neighborhood. In the particular condition of CFD 18, we do just have a few concerns. I hope that you were provided with the email that I sent over earlier today. I basically laid them out in that email, but just to reiterate really quickly, first and foremost, as I mentioned, when staff says that, were made aware of this CFD back in, call it the end of last year, end of 2022. Our understanding, I can't speak for the industry, but at least from the Granville side, was that this was going to be applied only to new annexations, which we were, happy to oblige with. We believe that, if you're bringing new property into the city, and maybe, that tax sharing doesn't add up and the city isn't collecting enough revenue, it does make sense in those particular senses. I do actually have the report right here, and actually the title of it is Revised Fiscal Impact Analysis of West Area Neighborhoods, Project Area Residential Development. So just like I said, there was a little bit of confusion, I guess, at the time, and we were a little bit surprised to see it then applied to other projects in other parts of the city. We also provided, with the email this morning, a little bit of math based on the numbers specifically from that report. All the formulas were directly from that report, and I personally plugged in just the numbers based on our pro formas in terms of valuation of the units. And based on the property tax that we believe will be generated for the city as a result of this project, there's actually a net positive that will be going toward public safety services. And so we really don't see, in that sense, why the CFD for public safety is appropriate in this case. In addition to that, our main concern with this CFD is for rent products. This particular neighborhood, like I said, is a little bit higher density single family. At this point in time, we intend to rent these homes in addition to the multifamily just to the south. When you impose a condition like this on a rental project, the banks look at it a little bit differently. And so just to give you a little bit of insight into the development side of things, when you have an impact like this that's going to be impacting your net operating income, the banks look at that and they look at it with a multiplier. Some of you may be familiar with the term the cap rate. And so that, in effect, multiplies that amount. This, in particular, for this project is roughly $11,000 per year that we as the landlord would be paying. And so when the bank looks to finance the project, they multiply that by whatever the cap rate may be, and you come to a number where, in this case, financing may be tougher to secure because the net operating income would be narrower. And so we as landlords would be placed in a position where we're forced to decide, okay, are we going to charge these folks higher rent, or are we just going to decide maybe the project doesn't pencil in this case and go back to the drawing board? So that's really our concern, is that we understand the intention to provide services, especially for areas newly annexed to the city, but it really, we feel, unintentionally provides a barrier for rent products. In this case, single family, also for multifamily projects. One last thing on this particular issue, we also have had the position of, these new homes, the fire suppression systems are much more improved than you would see in previous generations of home building. And so from what we've seen over the years, the calls for service in these newly built areas are much lower. And that's just another factor in the discussion of, okay, does this add up? And so really, our request to the commission tonight is to approve the map with the exception that one condition for CFD 18 be removed. At the same time, we also understand, this is our one hearing to describe the item. It's a pretty complicated item, and so if the commission's preference would be maybe to continue the item to allow discussion with staff. Personally, we don't feel that would be productive. As I mentioned, we've been discussing this for a number of months, and so our request at that point, if the persuasion of the commission is to approve the item, we would ask that you proceed with that approval so we can go ahead and appeal to City Council and receive another hearing there. So happy to answer any questions. Darius Assemi, also president of Granville Homes, is here tonight. He may have a few words to say, and I'm sure is available for questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very thorough.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Darius Assemi with Granville Homes. I think Drew covered it beautifully. Be glad to answer any questions. CFD 18 does, we believe, is an unnecessary double tax. And we've done the math. We've been communicating with staff. But if it's not in your purview to remove that item, we prefer that you approve our application in front of you, and then we can appeal that to City Council, where we could have a more robust debate on that item and on CFD 18s as a whole.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now go out to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment in favor of the application that are in chambers? If you're a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment on an item, please use the raise hand function.
There are no hands on Zoom.
Thank you. Are there members of the public who would like to comment in opposition of the application that are in the chambers? If you're a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment on an item, please use the raise hand function.
No hands on Zoom.
Sorry, just if you're done with that, I did have one thing to add from staff.
Okay. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Israel Trejo with the Planning and Development Department. So just would like to remind the Planning Commission, so the conditions are, they are as they are now. We're recommending approval with condition for CFD 18. There's certain findings that must be made in order to approve a particular project. Exhibit F are the findings. So if you go to Exhibit F, one of the findings for a plan development is that there are adequate public services to serve a project, and pursuant to the requirement of CFD 18, staff is saying that there will be adequate facilities to serve this project. So just want to remind the Planning Commission, if you do not require CFD, findings will need to be made that CFD 18 is not needed to provide public services. Thank you.
Thank you, because that's where I was going to ask that exact question. We'll now close the hearing. Would any commissioners like to ask questions or comment on the item? And thank you, you just answered my question.
I have a question. When we talk about the lead time, what is more efficient, to push this through to council and have them ultimately make that decision, or to send it back to planning for reevaluation?
So I can answer that question. This is a direction from the city council. They have required that all new projects after the date referenced earlier must require this, period. So staff has no discretion on that, nor does the Planning Commission. So the applicant could appeal your decision to the city council after tonight.
So ultimately, city council has to make that decision either way because it is their...
If you remove it from their condition, so you are the final decision maker on this tentative tract map and the planned development, correct? Yes. So if you remove it tonight, either the mayor or the council member of the district may appeal it to the city council. So, yep.
Any motions? Oh, let me make sure I'm saying this right. Is there any motions to approve staff's recommendations, changes?
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendations.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Diaz and, oh, I know your first name, I want to say your last name. Wagner.
We need the placards on the other side for you tonight.
Hard with, it's like back in high school or
Apparently I
elementary.
haven't been giving you a hard enough time lately.
Would the secretary, or we don't have, can I please, all those in favor, please say aye? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passes. That was fun. Does the secretary have anything to report?
You still have your new matters item that needs to be called.
I don't see that. How come mine's not in order?
So if we're taking it in order, then the next thing would be reports by commissioners, which is number 6. There's no continued matters, so then new matters.
Okay, well, I'm going to read this number. For some reason, I don't see this one on mine.
Just ask if any commissioners have any reports.
Does any commissioners have any reports? I had the wrong.
No, that one was not pulled from consent.
Okay. Thank you. I should know this. Sorry, guys, my second time. Okay, any reports by commissioners? I didn't hear any. Continued matters. There's no continued matters. New matters, we have ID 231122, hearing to consider text amendment application number P2302443.
Good evening, Commissioner, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Andrew Benelli. I'm with the Public Works Department. I'm the Assistant Director. Here this evening with a public hearing to consider a municipal code text amendment related to new subdivisions, installation of sidewalks. So the municipal code 15-3804 requires that subdivisions in subdividers improve or execute a secured agreement to install public improvements within the development. So what that means is they have to make a commitment. They can install public improvements first, but if not, most don't, they post a bond and they complete sidewalks, curb gutter, streets, water system, sewer system, all of the public improvements. When that work is done, the city releases that bond. So until that work is done, we do not release the bond. And often, it takes a long time to build out a subdivision. They will complete the street work and the majority of the improvements early on because they want to be able to move homeowners in. They also need to be able to get, sewer has to work. They need to be able to get construction equipment for the homes in and out. So they often complete the public improvements fairly early on. But one of the items that tends to lag behind is the construction of the sidewalks. The reason for that is that they don't like to build the sidewalks before the home. So often if a sidewalk goes in first, they go to build the home, the sidewalk gets damaged, they have to replace the sidewalk. So this text amendment is a request from the Building Industry Association, the BIA, to allow them to postpone some of the sidewalk work until, basically release the bond and give them a notice of completion for the subdivision before the sidewalks are completed. So the idea would be that they'd still have to build those sidewalks, but they would be a condition of occupancy of the homes. So most of the homes would be completed, most of the public improvements would be completed. The city would release the bond and consider it a completed project. But there may be some portion of the sidewalk work that wouldn't be completed. And this also includes driveways and street trees. So those are kind of the improvements that are done with the construction of the house, or kind of before occupancy, but after the construction. So this is a public hearing. It is a request for a text amendment. You have a copy of the edits that are being done to the municipal code. And it is an allowance, it's not a guarantee. So the decision of when it would be allowed is up to the Public Works Director. So we do have inspectors that are on field. And there could be sometimes when, because of maybe a safe route to school or other requirement, we might say, no, that sidewalk really needs to be done. But in many cases where there's an area that has no homes, you know, the builders do tend to go sort of block by block, but not always. You know, every project is different. But the idea would be to have some flexibility to allow the developers to complete the sidewalks with the construction of the home, but it does not release them from the obligation to build the sidewalks or install drive approaches or trees. That is sort of the big picture. If you have some questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Like I say, the actual text amendment is included with your package. It is a municipal code text amendment. You're making a recommendation to the City Council. They are the final approval authority. This is a municipal code section 15304. It is part of the development code. So chapter 15 is all development code related related items.
Thank you. Does any commissioners have any questions for staff?
I didn't see it in the text amendment, the proposed amendment, but is there going to be any timeline requirement for when the work would need to be completed? So 90 days after occupancy, or?
No, it would be before occupancy of the home. But if for some reason a developer doesn't build the rest of the homes, it's usually market driven, but I guess it could be otherwise. But if for some reason it takes them a long, long time to build every home, those sidewalks would be missing. We occasionally do get, we have vacant lots around town that there's no home on and there's no sidewalk. Usually the subdivisions fill up fairly quick, but not always. I mean, nowadays we get very few custom lot subdivisions. They're almost all tract homes. I think we maybe have 1 or 2 custom lot subdivisions in Copper River. That's all that I've seen since I've been here. Almost all the subdivisions are tract homes.
So if the Public Works determined that not having a sidewalk in a certain section would be somehow dangerous, for instance, kids had to walk that way to school, you would still make them put the
We
sidewalks
would say, no, we're
in.
not going to release the bond until those are installed.
Okay.
So the primary thing would be safe route to school. If we have a group of homes and then a block that's not built, and those children need to be able to walk on that block to reach school, we would not allow them to not complete that sidewalk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is a public hearing, by the way.
So I don't believe we have an, okay. We will now go out to public. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment in favor? If you're a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment on an item, please use raise hand function.
Darius Assemi with Granville Homes. Commissioners, I support our company, along with the Building Industry Association, supports this policy change. Sometimes subdivisions get completed with all the off-site and on-sites, but there's 20 or 30 homes that just can't complete for a variety of reasons. We hit recessions, so we just want to make sure we're actually getting our bonds released so that we can actually then develop other subdivisions down the road and reduce the liability. As you well know, the homes cannot be finalized without the sidewalk in front of them, if the sidewalk is required. One other note, you're in the process of building several parks throughout town with Measure P money. And a particular park west of 99 that you're building on Dakota Avenue, Dakota near Cornelia. There's a school adjacent, and then there's a school about a quarter mile away. you're not actually installing safe route, a sidewalk from that park to that Central East High School. Something that, for your consideration, as you care about, safe route to schools, that becomes an amenity not only for inside subdivisions, but in public works that you guys are funding to make sure you actually ask staff to create safe route to schools between your parks and schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment was anybody on Zoom? Sorry.
There are no hands on Zoom. You're good.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment in opposition of the application that are in the chambers? If you're a member of the public on Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please use raise hand function now.
No hands on Zoom.
Thank you. We will now close the hearing. Would any commission like to ask a question or comment on this item?
I'll move to recommend approval.
I'll second.
Okay, so is motion by Commissioner Bray and second by Commissioner Kreiner. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Now we're on track. Does the secretary have anything to report?
I do not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is unscheduled communication. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Is there anybody in the chambers who would like to comment? If you're a member of the public on Zoom, please use the raise hand function and dial *9.
No hands on Zoom.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Can you